Welcome to our first video on PBB. PBB means plant biology and biotechnology. So in this aspect of biology, we'll be studying plants majorly. Like I said, PBB means plant biology and biotechnology. So in this aspect, we're looking at biology, focusing on plants only. So I'm going to start by telling us the various methods of studying plants. Methods of studying plants. And number one method of studying plants, we can study plants based on their lifespan. Number two, we can study plants based on habitat. Number three, we study plants based on their mode of growth. All right. Then number four, we have based on mode of nutrition. Now, it is worthy of note that in the studying of plants using these various methods, some plants have different life cycle. Not every plant have the same life cycle. So I will start talking about the study of plants using the life cycle. When we talk about life cycle, of course, we are talking about the number of years, days, hours, time that it takes a plant to do what? To survive in a particular habitat. So for life cycle, we have the following things to study. Number one, the following group of plants, number one we call annuals. All right? Under lifespan, the first group of plants we have there to study are called annuals. Now, annuals are plants that lives and complete their life cycle within one growing season. All right? Plants that live and complete their life cycle within one growing season are called annuals. Now, examples of annuals, please take note. The most important thing is the examples, because this is the strength of the examiner. Examiner asks you which of these plants is an annual plant, and most times they use botanical names, which we'll also give here. So examples of annual plants we have, number one is called Dioscorea alata. But it is worthy of note that when we say Dioscorea alata, it is a particular species of yam, and that yam is called white yam. All right. So alata is white yam. If I should make this Dioscorea rotundata, this will be water yam. All right, water yam, meaning that we have various species of yam. If we say Dioscorea alata, we mean white yam. If we say Dioscorea rotundata, we mean water yam. If we say Dioscorea bulbifera, Dioscorea bulbifera, that will mean wild yam. All right. So you take note of the botanical names. So I will underline all the botanical names here. So these are examples of annuals, but this is just yam because I've just been given different species of yam. So I will say example 2 under annual plants. We have what we call Vigna unguiculata. Vigna unguiculata is common beans. All right. Take note of the botanical name because that is the strength of the examiner. Vigna unguiculata is common beans, or we call it cowpea. Either you call it common beans or you call it cowpea. All right. So these are two examples of annuals. If I should give you more examples, we have number 3. All right. Which we call the Z maize. This one is a popular one, Z maize. And Z maize is what? Maize. All right? So, like I said earlier, it is important to note the botanical names because this is the strength of the examiner in plant biology. All right, moving on, please. That is the examples of annuals. And remember, we started by saying that methods of studying plants, we have lifespan, habitat, mode of growth, mode of nutrition. Now, under the lifespan, what we have, number one, annuals. And I said that annuals are plants that live and complete their life cycle within one growing season. Example are the ones I've listed here. Now, under the same lifespan, we have second group of plants that we call, so I'll bring that here. I'll leave my outline because it is important, so I'll follow it respectively. Now, second group of plants under the life cycle, we have group of plants we call biennials. Now, it is important to note that biennials are plants that live and complete their life cycle within 2 growing seasons, unlike the annuals that just use 1 year. But it is important to note that biennials are all tubers. So there's one statement I want to make now. All biennials are tubers, but not all tubers are biennials. I repeat that. All biennials are tubers, but not all tubers are biennials. It then means that, for example now, yam is a tuber, but is it a biennial? No, it's an annual. But most examples of plants you will see under biennial are tubers. Why? The reason is because biennials use the first growing season to develop storage organs, so that in the second growing season they produce food and store it in the storage organ, right? So examples of biennials, like I said, the strength of the examiner is the examples. You must take note of the examples. Examples of plants we have here, we have number 1, Daucus carota. When we say Daucus carota, that's botanical name now. That is carrot. Is carrot a tuber? Yes. Example 2 we have what we call allium cepa. And what's allium cepa? It is onion. So this is the botanical name, while this is the common name. Allium cepa, all right? Onion. So all these are examples of, if you can think of even Manihot or Telesima, many tubers are biennials, but not all, like I said earlier, all biennials are tubers, but not all tubers are biennials. So there are many examples we have under here, but I will keep it for relevance sake. I will leave it at these 2. Then number 3 group of plants. Permit me to wipe that part. Yes. Number 3 group of plants we have under life cycle. Number 3 group of plants we have under life cycle are called the perennials. Perennials. What are perennials? Very important. Perennials are plants that outlive the biennials. What do we mean by this? They live and survive more than the biennials. They outlived the biennials and therefore persist from year to year. See what I'm talking about? They outlived, all right, the biennials and persist from year to year. Examples, once again, examples of perennials. This one you know a lot of them, Magnifera indica, but let me just list examples. We have a particular plant we call Mimosa pudica. Mimosa pudica is called sensitive plant. This plant is sensitive plant. Some of you call it touch and die. When you touch the leaf, it closes up, or it looks as if it's withering away or it's dying. That is Mimosa pudica. That plant is a perennial. All right. Number 2 example, we have plenty examples here. We have the Magnifera indica, Magnifera indica, right? Magnifera indica, or we'll say it is what? Mango. Mango is Magnifera indica. Trust you're enjoying the video on plant biology and biotechnology. I remain your humble boy, Affinity. Alright? We have plenty examples. Many plants you know are perennials. Because any plant that is in many plants in your father's compound are perennials. Why? Every year they produce and bear fruits. Then you have to wait for the next year again to harvest fruit from them. All of them are perennials. All right. Moving on, class. With what we have discussed now, we can say we can tick this lifespan. It is settled now at this point. So that the next method of studying plants we have here before us is habitat. We'll run through all these ones so that by the next video, we'll be discussing about the roots, the stem, and the leaves. But for now, I will follow this outline and make sure I finish everything that is in this first video, alright? So I will follow this one. The next point here is habitat. Methods of studying plant. Number 2, habitat. Habitat, all right? Habitat. Based on habitat, we know in biology that habitat is a living home of an organism. Remember, in biology, we are studying plants and animals, right? That's flora and fauna. We are studying plants and animals, and these are living organisms. So when we talk about habitat, we're talking about the living home of an organism. So this organism I'm talking about here now should be what now? Plants, because I'm discussing plant biology and biotechnology, all right? So for habitat, I say habitat is a living home, not house. There's a difference between home and house. We'll talk about that later. But for now, in biology, usually we have 3 types of habitats. But for plants, what is important to us is just 2. Although we have 3 types of habitats. Number 1, we have aquatic habitats. Aquatic habitat, and when we say aquatic, that's water bodies. Aquatic habitat. Then the number 2 type of habitat we have terrestrial habitat. All right. Then we have the third one, which is arboreal. But arboreal is not important to us. Although it is important to state that we have majorly 2 types of habitats. But the reason why some texts say we have 3 types of habitats is because they are trying to include the arboreal. But arboreal is a type of terrestrial. Because arboreal means tree-top life. So when we talk about tree-top life, they are all those plants that those birds, monkeys are staying on. They are on land. So we can say arboreal habitat is a type of terrestrial habitat. So, but for plants, these 2 are important to us. When we talk about the aquatic habitat, it is worthy of note that plants that live and survive in an aquatic environment are called hydrophytes. Now again, you may now ask yourself a question. There is this group of plants we call the mesophytes. So let me put them here first. The mesophytes. When you talk about the mesophytes are group of type of aquatic plants, but these ones live in moderate amount of water. So when a plant lives in a moderate amount of water, we say it is a mesophyte. But when it lives in adequate amount of water, we say it is a hydrophyte. Amount of water. All right. Now it is time to give examples of aquatic plants that live in body of water. It is worthy of note that aquatic plants have a particular type of roots which makes them survive in the body of water. This information I've given so far, you can write them down because I will be removing it from time to time. All right. So now Examples of aquatic plants. Examples of plants that live in aquatic environment. Like I said, all these plants, they have a particular type of root we call pneumatophore roots. Pneumatophore roots. Pneumatophore roots, or you call them breathing roots. Breathing roots. So this root helps them to carry out respiration, and at the same time it helps them in buoyancy in water so that they don't sink, so they float on top of water. So this is the type of root that helps them to do so. Now, examples of plants that have pneumatophore roots and that are aquatic. Examples. Remember, this is the strength of the examiner. They ask you which of this is an aquatic plant. So we have here one. We have a plant we call Rhizophora racemosa. What is Rhizophora racemosa? It is red mangrove. This is red mangrove. Red mangrove is an aquatic plant. Number 2 example, we have Avicenna nitida. Avicenna nitida is what? White mangrove. All right, white mangrove. All these are examples of aquatic plants. Please take note that this is the strength of the examiner, the botanical names. All right. Number 3, we have another one we call Ipomia aquatica. When we say Ipomia aquatica, what is it? The common name of that plant is what? The common name is what? Is water spinach. So when we say water spinach, that is Ipomia aquatica. So all these ones are examples of aquatic plants. All of them live in body of water and they have pneumatophore roots. There is also the Canna indica. Canna indica, and that is what? Canna lily. All right. Also, water lily is also another example. I will have plenty examples under this, but for relevance sake, for the strength of the examiner, I will leave it at these ones. Up next, under the same habitat, remember I said that the ones that are important to us is the aquatic, which I have discussed, examples of aquatic plants here. Another one that is important to us is the terrestrial habitat. What are terrestrial plants? What type of plants live and survives on land? Of course, then all the plants you see day by day, the plants you come across, the plants you see every day, they are all land plants. So they are what now? Terrestrial plants. So when I say terrestrial plants, examples of terrestrial plants, we should be looking at many plants you know. Mango, Magnifera indica. So I will just list, just keep on giving you examples of them and like that. So one, we have Carica papaya. And what's Carica papaya? That's purple. Alright? So this is an example of a terrestrial plant. More importantly, there is this plant we call, which is not that common. We call it Siam. S-I-A-M. Siam. Siam is called Awolowo weed. Here in Nigeria, we call it Awolowo weed. Siam is Awolowo weed, and this plant is a common land plant. Some students in the urban environment will see questions like this. In their past question, like which of these is a terrestrial plant? The answer is Siam, Awolowo weed. All right, we have a lot of plants here. Magnifera indica is another example. Magnifera indica. Also, Coco nucifera, which is coconut, is also another one. Remember, this is mango. I've said that before. All right, many examples. Almost all the plants you know are terrestrial plants because they live where? On land. But it is important for those in urban environment to take note of this particular plant, which is called Siam or Awolowo weed. All right. Now, We can say with all what we have discussed here now, we can say that this habitat can be ticked now. We can tick habitat. But before I leave this habitat, when we talk about terrestrial plants, remember there are some plants that live in deserts. The plants that live in desert are also terrestrial plants because desert is land, of course, but it is a place with very little or even no rainfall. So I would like to talk about that under terrestrial before I leave the habitat. So I will talk about the desert plants. The desert plants. All right? Desert plants. It is worthy of note, please take note that desert plants are known as xerophytes. So plants that live and survive in deserts are called xerophytes. Xerophytes, all right? Class at A level, we also call it CAM plants. CAM plants. C-A-M plants. Class. Why do we call them CAM? What is the full meaning of CAM? CAM means clauscusin acid metabolism. What is it all about? It is a particular metabolic pathway taken by some group of plants to carry out photosynthesis. It is worthy of note that in biology, in plant biology, we know that plants carry out photosynthesis. How? Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere diffuses through the stomata of the leaf, while plants absorb water from the soil, a type of water we call what? Capillary water. So this combines, remember that photosynthesis is CO2 plus H2O to give what? Class? To give C6, so that will give me C6, H12O6 plus what now? O2. Remember that oxygen is given off as a byproduct. Why my arrow like that? To balance this equation, you put 6 here, put 6 there, and put 6 here. So, all right, let me do that well. Put 6 there. So we have this. This is glucose, the first product of photosynthesis. Look at the two essential materials. You need carbon dioxide, you need water to get glucose and oxygen as a byproduct. I'm not talking about photosynthesis now. Why am I saying this now? Because of these desert plants we call CAM plants. Now, for every plant that must carry out photosynthesis to manufacture your own food, that particular plant need carbon dioxide. Now, plants need to open their stomata to fuse in carbon 4. Now, if a plant is in desert, that plant need to conserve water. And remember in biology, when plants open up their stomata for carbon dioxide to diffuse in, also they will lose water in form of transpiration and that plant may eventually die. Therefore, desert plants do not open their stomata during the day. This is why desert plants, or we call them xerophyte plants, open their stomata at night to fuse carbon 4. Plants that do that are desert plants or xerophytes. So that is why that type of metabolic pathway where you open your stomata at night to fuse carbon dioxide is what we call CAM pathway. Therefore, these plants are also called CAM plants. Examples of CAM plants. Examples of CAM plants or desert plants or xerophytes. Examples. We have number 1, cactus. Cactus. It is worthy of note that cactus is the predominant plant in the desert. What does it mean? We have many desert plants, but the one that dominates, the one you find easily, the one that is much, the one that you have a lot of them in the desert is cactus. Subscribe, share, comment, and most importantly, remember to keep comments respectful. So cactus are plants that are predominant in desert. The next example of plant I need to talk about, another example is acacia. Acacia is a desert plant. There is this other one, number 4. We call it Bryophyllum. Bryophyllum pinnatum. Bryophyllum pinnatum is a plant we call resurrection plant. Resurrection plant. When we say resurrection plant, that is Bryophyllum pinnatum. Alright, it's also a desert plant. Remember that these plants are reproduced by the leaf. I'll talk about that when we get to our video on reproduction. Then number 5, there is this example we call Opuntia. 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 Opuntia is also a desert plant. For those who want to see the pictures of these plants and what they look like, you can watch my video on classification of plants one in this my YouTube channel. All right, remember that the YouTube channel name is, so I can remove this part and put that up here. So the YouTube channel name is Affinity Chem. Don't forget Affinity Chem. Remember to subscribe and remember to share, because we have lots more things to give you. All right, with this channel you just get your A easily. Affinity Chem is the name of the YouTube channel. So we'll upload chemistry, biology videos just like the one you are watching now. All right, moving on, please. To finish up my outline, I will be fast with this. We have the next one, which is mode of growth. And mode of growth will not take our time at all. What do we have in mode of growth? Under mode of growth, we have two groups of plants. We have plants that are called creepers. Creepers are plants that cripple, or they crawl on the ground. All right, they don't grow erect. You understand now? So number two group of plants we have here are called climbers. So creepers and climbers. Creepers are the ones that crawl on the ground, while climbers, they grow erect. So there are two different things. So under mode of growth, there are some plants that do not grow erect, so we call them creepers, and there are some plants that grow erect, which we call what now? Climbers. I'll just give one example each of creepers and climbers, and that one is more important and most current in exam past questions you see. So examples of creepers, example of creeper, example of a creeping plant, example of a creeping plant or creeping plants. So let me just give two. One, we have a particular plant we call Axonopus compressors. This plant is known as carpet grass with broad leaf. Carpet grass. All right, carpet grass is what we call Axonopus compressors. It's a creeper. It is not a climber. It has weak stems, so it crawls on the ground. Number two example I want to give examples of creepers. I said number one is Axonopus compressors. Number two, I can give Ipomia batatas. Ipomia batatas is what? Sweet potato. All right, this plant, if you have seen it grow, you see that it crawls on the ground. All right, so it's an example of a creeper. It is not a climber. But I will just quickly give one example on climber so that we can move on from here. So example of climber, so I'll put it here. Example of climber, or maybe I will give two examples. Example of climbers. So we have one. You know, when we talk about climbers, plant that climbs, maybe when you put a particular stick, if you see a particular thing like this, something that looks like this, if this is a stick, you see the plant crawl and climbs on it like this. Of course, you know some plants that do that. Example is yam. Yes, yam is a climber, so I can put it there as an example. But for the one I've seen in past question before, there is this one we know as Ipomia involucrata. Ipomia involucrata is what we call morning glory weed. It is a climber. So another example I said there is, of course, Dioscorea alata. and scleroalata. So with this, we are done with studying of plants based on what? Based on what, class? Based on mode of growth. So we have two things based on mode of growth: creepers, climbers, and the examples of creepers we say we have Azonopus compressors and Ipomia batatas. Examples of climbers we have Ipomia involucrata and Scleroalata. Of course, Scleroalata is what now? Yeah. So the last part of this video, because I said that this is part 1, plant biology and biotechnology part 1, there will be the second video which will talk about the roots, the stem, and the leaves. This is the first part of the video. We have started on the plant biology proper. In the next video, we'll talk about the root, stem, and leaf. So I will finish up with what we have in this first video. I said that another way of studying plants, to study plants according to mode of nutrition. Mode of nutrition. In biology, we talk about mode of nutrition, which will have two types, or two modes rather. The two modes of nutrition, one is called autotrophic, and second one is called heterotrophic mode of nutrition. These are modes of nutrition. In plant biology, we have autotrophic plants. Autotrophic plants are all green plants. All green plants that can manufacture their own food. That's all green plants that carry out photosynthesis. It is important to state that only plants that have chlorophyll, that's green parts of plants, only parts of plants that are green or that have green leaves that can carry out photosynthesis. Why? Because it contains chlorophyll, a particular pigment that is in charge of trapping sun's energy. That's the reason why we say that sun is the primary source of energy. Why? Because the energy trapped by these plants, they use it in manufacturing their own food, which we now eat, and that same energy enters us. So that's why we say that sun is the primary source of energy. So now I don't need to give examples of autotrophic plants. Any plant that is green is autotrophic, meaning that it can manufacture its own food, can carry out photosynthesis. But this is where our major concern lies, which is heterotrophic. When we say auto, it means self. Trophic, feeding or feeder or production. So an organism that can manufacture its own food, a plant that can manufacture its own food, is known as autotrophic plant. What about the heterotrophic? Heterotrophic, the ones that cannot manufacture their own food, the dependent feeders. This one depend on different things to get their own food. So examples of plants we have here. We have two groups of plants I will discuss here. One is known as parasitic plants, parasitic plants, parasitic plants. And the other is known as carnivorous plants. Either we call them carnivorous plants or we call them insectivorous plants. Please pay attention to these two group of plants. Here we have some group of plants that are parasites. Remember, parasites are organisms that lives in or on another organism, obtaining food there and taking shelter. Meanwhile, the other plant that is living on does not benefit, may even die in the process. Examples of parasitic plants, examples of parasitic plants, examples of parasitic plants will have Doda, or we call it Casita filiformis. Casita filiformis, that is Doda. All right, Casita filiformis, that is Doda plant. Another example we have Rafflesia. There are a lot of plants that are parasites. All right, we have Rafflesia. But please, you can check up on our video on classification of plant 1 to see the pictures of these plants, what they look like. All right, we have Casita, which is Doda. We have Miss Lito. So this is one. We have two, Miss Lito. mistletoes. All right, mistletoes are parasitic plants. So I will leave it at this one. Now, examples of carnivorous plants, I will put them up here, and that will end this video, so that in the next video we'll continue from root, stem, and leaves. So all right, let me give you examples of carnivorous plants. When we talk about carnivore, or we call them insectivorous plants, they are plants that catch and kill insects and feed on them. Question 1: why do carnivorous plants feed on insects? The answer is because they want to get nitrogen. This is an exam question. Check many past questions, you see it. So the reason why carnivorous plants kill and digest insects is because they want to get nitrogen. Now, examples of these plants quickly. Examples of these plants, we have 1. We have what we call venomous flytrap. Venomous flytrap. 2. We have pitcher plant. Pitcher plant is also known as Nepenthes. All right. 3. We have bladderwort. Bladderwort is another one. Bladderwort. 4. We have water fly trap. All right. We have a lot of them. There's this popular one, very, very important, I must put here, number 5, and that is Drosera indica. What was Drosera indica? That is sundew. All right. In summary, here is this video, plant biology and biotechnology, and we're talking about how we can study plants, and we say we have various ways of studying plants, which could be a mode of growth, which will be lifespan, which can be mode of nutrition, etc. All right, which we have given examples of all these plants and how they feed. In our next video, which will be plant biology 2, we'll talk about how some of these plants feed, and we'll look deeply into some areas like roots. So you have to check out for the next video that will feature the roots, stems, and leaves. All right. So majorly we call this part of plant biology morphology of flowering plants. So morphology of flowering plants. Morphology is an English word which means the study of the internal structures of words. If you bring it to biology, introduce plants to it, it will mean the study of the internal structures of flowering plants, such as roots, stem, and leaves. So in our next video, which will be plant biology 2, you see all this. Thanks for watching. And for those who want to see us physically, you can come to kinematics tutorials. Please remember to comment, but make sure you keep your comments respectful. All right, see you in our next video. Thank you.